Here we are for another Intelligence Fusion podcast. I am with Daniel Harrington, our Chief Operating Officer, who is based in London, and he leads our coverage across Europe. Today he's going to give us an overview of the trend that is London knife crime. So I think to start, Daniel, why don't you give us an overview of 2019 and kind of any trends that you see kind of falling into 2020?
Sure. So on our platform, on our London knife crime theme for 2019, we've recorded approximately 500 significant incidents relating to knife crime within London. It's important to know that these incidents may include multiple victims of stabbings and also associated knife crime related incidents such as home invasions, armed robberies, or that kind of incident. So looking, at a trend essentially throughout 2019 and giving you an overview, what we've seen as a increase in the continuation of violent knife crime within London. We've seen certain neighbourhoods and areas such as Harrington, Harrow, Lewisham and Tower Hamlets continue to be affected by knife crime. And we've also seen it spread into other areas where it hasn't been so prevalent before. So, for example, Shepherd's Bush, and also more affluent areas such as in Greenwich.
Right. Okay.
The majority of it is gang related.
Right. But what do you think the kind of causes or reasons perhaps behind the gang related knife crime is?
I think there's a myriad of different causes behind it. It's quite complex, but I would say, one of the reasons we're seeing it spread now into more affluent areas is a saturation of the drug market. So previously, gangs within London, they had their own turf, their own area, and they were making significant profit. What we're finding now is because of the amount of gang activity and the availability of drugs within London is causing gangs to come into increasing conflict over trying to essentially get more profitable areas of the city. So, for example, in Greenwich, you're having gangs coming into conflict over distribution areas, for example, because they know they can get more money and more profit from kind of white collar workers dealing cocaine than maybe potentially other areas. So that might be one reason. You also got a lack of a police footprint as well and patrolling in a lot of neighbourhoods of London. Many Londoners complain now that they don't see police having a high posture in a lot of areas. A lot of the actual police resource has been redirected away into terrorism. So what you're finding is police officers, armed police, they're there at, say, train stations or tourist areas, but there's less of a police presence in neighbourhoods. Kind
of bobbies on the beat kind of thing.
Exactly, and that acts as a deterrent as well. Mm-hmm. Even though recently the Conservative government has made a push for hiring an extra 20,000 officers nationwide and also backing more stop and search powers, that's still going to take a while to implement and to see any improvement from that. And again, officers need time to be trained up. They need time to gain experience. So there's a void there. There's a gap. So that is an issue. We're also seeing an increase in sort of social media, such as drill rapping. So you're getting different gangs who are kind of threatening each other or dissing each other, and that again is increasing to sort of violent crime. I think as well, one of the main issues is potentially austerity, where we've had a lack of investment in infrastructure and peripheral services to the police. So potentially youth centres, probation officers and social workers. So traditionally areas where a young person from, say, a deprived neighbourhood may have been tempted to go into gangs. There may have been a youth hostel there or an outreach worker who could have persuaded that person maybe to turn a different path after an initial crime, a lower level crime. However, due to sort of cutbacks, there's less resource now. So there's increasing pressure for kids who feel ostracised maybe from society or who are kind of struggling. There's increasing pressure from sort of gangs to be able to recruit them. We're also finding that, say, for example, with the county lines issue. So you're finding that London is a hub for drug distribution to wider regions, such as in the Shires, so the West Country, in the Midlands, and gangs are recruiting increasing younger ages of children in London to go out to these areas and distribute drugs, again targeting more affluent areas, so Exeter, Cheltenham, Nottingham, those kind of areas where there's, say, student populations, or there's more affluent areas of people that are willing to sort of spend money.
Yeah. So what about links to other violent crime? Do you see, a relationship between the increase in gang-related knife crime to any other, shootings across London, or?
So on our platform, we also track shootings as well as acid attacks. We do see a correlation between shootings and knife crime, right, okay. But generally there's a far fewer frequency of shootings within London itself, but and also as well we've seen this in 2019 a decline in the number of acid attacks compared to previous years. That also may indicate that as the police have concentrated on sort of prosecuting for those kind of crimes, criminals have reverted back to using knives because maybe it's easier to carry. We have seen as well home invasions, so in areas such as Hampstead, affluent areas like that, we've seen violent home invasions of gangs armed with knives going into property. And again, that's also been associated with gang crime. And again, I think this is potentially, and it's speculation maybe from my side, but I think a lot of gang members may see that the drug market has been saturated, and there's potentially easier prey, and it's easier maybe to target affluent homes and rob them.
Yeah. More wider, what do you think are the kind of impacts of this increase in various violent crime on kind of businesses in London, or businesses that have operations in London? What do you think the impact on those are?
Well, the lack of police resource on the street has led to an increase in muggings, or the perception of an increase, in violent crime towards people on the street. So corporations and companies need to be conscious of providing any guidance to potential commuters who may be commuting to offices or areas which may be affected by an increase or a concentration of gang crime. So that's one area. Generally speaking, home invasions, for example, in affluent areas, that may affect sort of the senior management of a lot of corporations or organisations. So it's always worth kind of giving advisories, or keeping your sort of senior personnel aware of that. But I think predominantly gangs are not interested in commercial properties per se. That's as in from a knife crime perspective, it's more the issue of maybe a worker being in the commuting, being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah. Great stuff. Thank you very much for that, Daniel. I think that's pretty much it for the gang crime podcast. As Daniel mentioned, there are various ways on the platform which you can actually monitor the activity of these gangs. We've got the themes tool, which allows you to see kind of areas of high concentration and see kind of trends and patterns within the data that we collect. So if anyone would like a closer look at the platform and how we can kind of help in that respect, then we will leave a link in the comments for you to book your free demonstration. Thanks very much.
Thank you.